Welcome to the One Player Podcast, the show on solitaire board games. I'm Albert, and this is episode 387. Definitely.
For the islands you pulled from the sea. You're welcome.
Oh, you're welcome. Oh, it's such a good movie. I just saw that again recently. I watched it while running on my treadmill, and surprisingly, it worked okay for the treadmill.
There you go.
Yeah, I do like that one a lot.
Well, guess who you get to play in this game?
Moana?
Maui, pulling the islands from the sea, and friends.
Nice. Okay.
Or I suppose just the friends.
So today's game is Oros, which for me the title it sounds like a Spanish word, and I keep thinking bears, but bears would be osos with an S, not an R. And oro is gold, so it could be many golds.
I have no idea where the term Oros comes from because the demigods look Polynesian, so I don't really know. But the idea of Oros is that you are one of four Polynesian or one of four demigods, which have the ability to pull islands from the sea. And you are pulling islands from the sea and throwing them together to form mountains and inspiring your followers to gain knowledge, all for the goal of getting the most amount of points at the end of the game.
And so you say they look Polynesian, but the board I'm looking at, it looks like a Mexican, a Mayan pyramid sort of thing. So I think it's just a little bit of everything. Really, what it is. It's a worldly pantheon.
Sure. At the very least, I don't think they have any specific culture that they are attempting to duplicate. I think they're just having fun.
Yeah, I think you're right. Okay, so Julius, tell me about this game. I haven't played it. I mentioned recently that I saw it at the Goodwill, not the Goodwill, at the Barnes and Noble store, and it was on clearance for $25. Last time I was there, it was at 20. I still haven't bought it, and I haven't had a chance to play it, even if I had, honestly.
Well, to give you the very brief overview, the idea of the game is that, again, you're these demigods. You're trying to get points. And the way you get points is you have a player mat with 6 actions on it. You can shift tiles, move tiles, erupt volcanoes, send your followers on journeys, send them to go study, or you can build up these sacred sites on mountains. And you are moving your followers from spot to spot. You always have to pick up a follower and put them in an empty space. You are doing that, so it is action selection where the amount of actions you have is restricted to actions that you haven't immediately previously taken. So you're moving around taking those actions, trying to ideally throw together big plots of land into mountains so that you can form sacred sites on those mountains and get points for having those sacred sites built. The game will end once any one player has gained enough ascension points, which are points that sort of are on the end game point track. When someone has fully ascended, it's going to trigger the end of the game, and then we'll start seeing who has the most amount of points together. So that is the very brief overview of the game.
Okay, so it's a worker placement game.
Kind of a worker placement game, yeah.
And you're also laying tiles.
Yes.
Neat. Okay.
Although I don't think it's tile laying so much as just tile moving.
Yeah. There's a map that's an island, or it's like an ocean in the middle, and the game's already been started. I guess there's 9 tiles in the middle that are islands, and then there's little islands along the edge too that with arrows. It shows like they seem like they move or something.
Well, why don't we just talk about the components since you already started?
Since I jumped ahead.
Components. So talking about the components, you do have the big board, and I will point out I have the upgraded components. I'm going to be making reference to the 2 different types of components. So you have the main island board. The world is considered round. So if you go off one edge, you come back on the other side. So everything loops together. And in fact, Albert noticed that there's some arrows because it's a square island. The corners connect. So if you push along one of those arrows, you come out the other side of those arrows because the whole world is round. So
that's clever. Okay.
I thought it was a good way of doing things.
Yeah.
So you have that island board, you have that ocean board. And when you start the game, you sort of seed the board with a whole bunch of pre-made mountains, pre-made island shapes around the various different places. So there's 4 different types of land masses that you can make. So 1, 2, 3, and 4, denoted by how many edges are filled up. There is a subset of ones, which are one islands, which don't have any edges, just landmass in the middle. But there's 1, 2, 3, and 4 based on how much there is, and you'll precede the board with some of those. And those can be moved around. Each one of those blocks are a specific tile. So the game comes with a bunch of different tiles for those.
Mhm.
You also have your followers. Each player plays different one of 4 different colors. So there's red, yellow, blue, and green, and those technically have like a lore idea behind them, but no practical difference. So you have your followers. You start with some followers that you're going to immediately put on the board to be able to move them around, and some followers that will go on your player board that will determine which actions you can take. Your player board in the basic version is a flat board. I think even all the deluxe ones have I'm going to call it a 2-tier board. So this is the one with the cutouts that are used to form it. The idea
Okay.
of the 2-tier is that it has spots for where your followers go, as well as spots for where your knowledge caps go. Each one of your actions has a default ability. For example, the farthest left action you can take is shift all tiles in a row. So you find one row, column, row, whichever way it is, worlds round, and you shift them all the way around. So if something's on the edge, it shifts back over to the other side, and everything goes along, just shifting along that row. As you level it up, you can shift tiles 1 space, 2 spaces, 3 spaces. You can shift mountains because you can't normally move mountains, or you just get points for taking those actions. So you have to level that up by getting knowledge points, knowledge caps. The knowledge caps fit into that 2-tier board to allow you a space to hold where your knowledge caps are so that they don't slide around. The 2-tier board, the way they made it, and I'm already going to comment about some of the components. The way they made that 2-tier board is they had a large piece of cardboard with holes cut out of it, and they had a thinner piece of not cardboard but thick paper that you're intended to insert into the cardboard, sandwich it over, and then there's some clips that you put onto 2 edges of it. So the
Oh.
2 edges have these large plastic clips. Both sides of it have a 2-tier cutout, therefore. The idea being that if you flip it over, you can use it for the solo game, and it also has a 2-tier cutout. But neither side is flat. I will say, I absolutely dislike this method of making a 2-tier board.
Mm-hmm.
SETI, another game, had a 2-tier board that you had to create, but the way they made that is they provided you some stickers, and you had a flat board, and you sandwiched it over, and you used those stickers, and when it was all done, it was all stuck together and went flat. This one doesn't go flat. It's got those big plastic clips that prevent it from laying flat on the table. And in fact, in my opinion, makes the inside board bow in. So it's not completely
Yeah.
all flush and level as a sandwich. It is
Yeah.
not my favorite way of doing this. I don't know why it is that they decided to do it this way. It could be that their intention is maybe that they can replace the clips in expansion, replace the end size in expansion. I no idea.
Yeah. It seems like an interesting idea, but does it just didn't work? It doesn't sound like.
Yeah, not a huge fan of it. But anyway, that is the player board. So the player board, at least it's 2-tier, and at least it holds stuff. But it is not my favorite way of implementing that. Discussing some of the other components, I already mentioned that you have tiles around the board, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you have thicker tiles for the mountains. The mountains are thicker because they're definitely special. Those are the places where you build your sacred sites. Each player has a set of sacred sites in their colors. So ones that are 3/4 of a mountain, half a mountain, and 1/4 of a mountain. And so those are big chunky wooden pieces that go on the board. You get to put them out, they take up a fair amount of room, and those are very nice components. There are also mountains, which are sort of mountain meeples, printed 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so those are sort of like bolt up land. They're meeples that you go on places, and you can use them to explode them later to cause land to go in various places. The last components I'm going to talk about are the meeples for the player characters. There's an ascension board. I mentioned there's a victory point track, which counts towards endgame points. Its endgame points the same as any other game points, but endgame points scored as part of Ascension start working towards endgame points. Now, you'll often want to be getting Ascension points because since it's on a track, it can flip flop between each other. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4, going all the way up to 15. If, let's say, you had 2 and you got an Ascension point and someone was on 3, then you jump over them and you get 4. So you're often jostling with that Ascension point track. So even though it is victory points like in the other, it's special enough that it's distinct and doesn't feel the same as the others, but it does go towards victory points at the end of the game as well as working towards the end of the game. The characters that you put on that in my version of the game are these big chunky meeples. They're really nice, the big chunky meeples. The basic version of the game is standees, and the standees are also nice. It's a nice art. I appreciate it. They're big and chunky. There are, in my version of the game, if you don't like having the big giant meeples on the board, you can have slightly smaller little round circles with the player characters printed on them. But why?
Why?
I don't
Yeah.
know why. Big cool chunky meeples are big cool chunky meeples. We use the big cool chunky meeples.
Yeah. Now, does the regular version also bring little round wooden pieces or no?
Not round wooden pieces. I think they just have round
Just
regular
just a
pieces
cup.
on the punch board.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. And you have
because
round wooden pieces or round
round
meeples?
wooden pieces.
Yeah. Okay. So that's pretty. They're pretty nice. They're big, like you said, and they're shaped right. So it's not a standard meeple shape. Each one's different. They're
Yes.
shaped like the image. They're pretty cool
Yeah.
and
Big
colorful.
big
Yeah.
old things. Yep. And in my version, there's a lot of wood and a lot of other stuff involved in that. The main version is a lot of cardboard. Cardboard, in my opinion, is just fine. Perfectly fine with cardboard. It's chunky enough cardboard that it does exactly what it needs to do. The chunky wood is
Yep.
nice, but definitely not a needed thing. The needed thing, in my opinion, is the insert. The deluxe version has an insert that lets you organize the different types of land pieces, as well as a spot for the volcanoes and a spot for storing all the characters. So the spot for the characters, those things that could be in bags, but having an insert where you have 1 through 4 into the mountains all nicely laid out, that is very helpful for playing the game. Keeps things much more well organized, and so the insert is probably the best part of the deluxe version of the game. And that, I guess that just goes to show what my opinions on inserts and
Yeah.
deluxes.
You do like your inserts, that's for sure.
Yeah. I will also say, by the way, I really didn't emphasize it enough. The volcano meeples are actually also a really nice thing. Uh, they're wood meeples in volcano shape, which are kind of cool.
Oh, cool. Okay. And just so people know, you do like your inserts, but you have no qualms about throwing one away if it doesn't work for you. You
That's
just
absolutely
tossing it
true.
away. Yes.
This one does work though, for the most part. It's really
Yeah.
the only issue I have with the game, with the components of the game, is really that dual the dual layer player
Yeah.
mats. It's just such a miss. I would have honestly, I would have preferred the plain non double sided maps. The only time you really care about that, like, is organizing the knowledge caps, but being able to slide up the knowledge caps on the fully flat board is just as convenient. So just, I don't know, just don't bump it. Like, they're already so tiny and hard to really use that yeah. Player mats is a miss, but the rest is all very nice.
So you're saying you could play without the upper layer and just use the lower layer, but the pieces are
I don't know if you
easy to move around.
could.
No. Okay.
I don't know if everything's printed on the lower layer. Haven't considered that. The solution I did was I bought some 3D printed clips to try and add an extra
Ah.
set of height to the bottom to go with the clips on the top, and
Yeah.
that makes it a little bit better. I didn't think about just unclipping it. I didn't know if you could do that.
Okay. That might make, if it works, it might make it easier. But like you said, if there's stuff printed on the upper layer board that you need for information, then yeah, that wouldn't work.
Yeah. Had
Huh.
had not considered that. Maybe I will. Probably won't, because it exists.
Yeah, you got a system at this point.
So that is the components. Let's talk about the theme for a minute.
Okay.
Um, the theme is kind of light, I would say. Your demigods trying to form land into mountains, and for some reason, there's a competition to be the most knowledge pointed person, I guess.
Well, that's what you're playing gods, right? And that's what gods do.
Yeah, you are playing gods, and you want
Yeah.
to be the best god.
Yeah.
Um,
What god
yeah,
doesn't, right? You compete with each other all the time.
yeah. So I guess that's it. And
Yeah.
your powers are limited to moving mountains around and throwing up volcanoes and stuff, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's fine. I never felt particularly encouraged by the theme or felt like I was, living in the moment with it. It's fine.
Yeah, well, I'll say the box front doesn't inspire any theme whatsoever. When I see the box, I have no idea what the game might be about, really.
Islands.
Yeah, it's about an island. That's all I know, right?
Yeah.
And the back does give you more information, but the front is very unclear. It's pretty, don't get me wrong, but yeah, it gives you no sense of it.
Yeah. I will also say, by the way, the deluxe one, the box, you mentioned the box is big.
Oh, okay.
The box is very big because of the insert and because of the nice components. It really takes up a significant amount of space.
So it's thicker, right? Not taller and wider.
It's
Just
taller.
thicker.
I know what you mean by
If
thicker.
it's
It's taller.
okay, so you're laying it flat so that you could lift the lid up. That kind of taller, then.
Yes.
Okay, I was imagining it standing up. I guess because you guys said thicker. Anyway, so there we go. I'm guessing the one at the Barnes and Noble is not the deluxe version. It's probably just the
And
regular
I
old
think you'd
version.
probably be just fine with the non deluxe.
Yeah. Okie doke. All right. So that's the theme and the components. It's a perfectly fine theme, but it's not quite there. How about the rules? How are the rules? I haven't seen the rule
The
book yet.
rules. So, talking about the rules, I think that the rules also, I think that the core concept of the game is strong, which when you start explaining the rules helps make that core concept of the game strong. You have a certain set of actions that you can use, and the game goes through and explains to you what it is that those actions can do. So it helps having that core set of here are the actions, here's what they do, go through it, all makes that very clear. The game, how do I put this? The game decides to put the idea of knowledge points and upgrading your actions in weird places. I think it calls out a key concept called wisdom, and it says, "Hey, you gain wisdom to upgrade wisdom caps," but I just don't think it explained well enough about what those wisdom caps are. For example, here's what I think is the biggest miss. Those wisdom caps are strange. The idea of leveling up your abilities is pretty crucial. And I would think that it would be much better to explain what you do with them more than how you get it. But the game gives a picture about wisdom caps of a core idea of how you gain it, not how you use it. It needed to start by explaining, hey, all these things, you upgrade them by getting wisdom. I'll tell you how to get wisdom later, but you upgrade it by getting wisdom. And wisdom lets you push up your level caps and upgrade each of your actions. Now then, let me tell you about what each of the actions are and what they upgrade to. And that's how it should have been. Because the action that lets you upgrade other actions is like halfway through the list of actions, it isn't until we get to that action that we start talking about upgrading other things. And just I made my way
Oh,
through it. I got that. I understood it. But just for me, when I explained it, I explained in a different order. And often when I'm explaining things in a different order than the rulebook says, it means that, in my opinion, the game should have also explained it the way it is that I explained it.
mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. That you got to read the rule book first, one through, and then kind of come back and read it again and say, "Oh, okay, now I see what they're talking about."
Yeah, that is really exactly what it is. Is it takes a double read through to be able to understand the rules.
Oops. Well, I mean, it's not a huge rule book. It's it's thick enough, but it's doable. It's what,
Yeah, and
24
I mean,
pages or something like
you get it.
that?
It's not like I came out of the rulebook not understanding it. The rulebook did explain everything. There are certainly games where I've gone through rulebook and didn't understand it and had to go to other resources and materials online. I get
So
it.
so that means if you're a solo gamer, you're gonna have to read the rulebook first to get a sense of the game. Then you're gonna read the rulebook again to really understand the game, and then you're gonna read it a third time to figure out the solo rules at the end. Is that right?
Yes.
Sound about right? Yes. Ah, oh, that stings. That's terrible. That's just terrible.
Yeah, but that's your common complaint. I don't have that issue.
Yeah, but most games it's only twice that you got to read it, right? You got to read, but here it's like three whole times. And now you've
Yeah, but
read the
we haven't
solo
had
rules,
that.
you got to go back and reference the multiplayer rules again. So you're probably reading it four times at least.
Yeah, that always happens. But anyway, that's the rules. Let me start talking about the gameplay,
Huh?
because that's where things
Okay.
are going to start being a little bit better.
Okay.
The idea of the gameplay is, as mentioned, you've got those tiles that you're putting on the board and you're trying to combine them together into mountains. The goal is whenever you combine a 4 and a 4 together, it forms a mountain. Once you have a mountain, you can then walk your followers to that mountain. Once you have your followers on that mountain, you can then have those followers build a sacred site. So I mentioned there's the 3/4, the 2/4, and the 1/4
Yeah.
sacred sites. They have to be built in ascending order. So starting with the 3, then the 2, then the 1. And you can only ever build one of a single site, i.e., you can only have yours once on a spot. So you can't build all 3 on a single spot. You have to have interactions with other players. So
Oh. Uh huh.
that's multiple steps to be able to build those sacred sites. Sacred sites alone don't do a whole lot. Sacred sites theoretically can be used to get a little bit of wisdom. Theoretically, you gain a little bit of ascension when you get them, but really it's more the end game points that you get, because as you level up some of your abilities, sacred sites can be worth a whole bunch of end game points. Like you can get 7 points for each one of them if you've leveled it all the way up to the highest or something like that. I'm not sure what the number is, but if you level it all the way up, you can get a certain number of points for getting as high up as possible for each of the different types of tracks. There's a whole bunch of points you can get for having those
Uh-huh.
sacred sites out there. But it is a multi-stage process to be able to do that. Moving tiles around typically requires one of two different ways. You can shift whole rows. Shifting whole rows will not usually collide 4s and 4s together because it's shifting a whole row. Nothing hits when you're doing that. The way you collide things together is by moving a tile set. And by default, you have to move a set of 3 tiles. So you have to find 3 tiles together, one of them a 4 next to another 4, and smoosh those together. When you smoosh those together, those form mountains. If you're smooshing together anything other than that, it levels up what it is. So if you smoosh together a 2 and a 2, it makes a 4. If you smoosh together a 3 and a 3, it makes a 4 with an extra 2 volcano there. So any of the extra land mass goes to making volcanoes that you can explode at a later point in time. So but you're smooshing those things together to make mountains. Once you have mountains, once you have volcanoes, I mentioned volcanoes, you can erupt volcanoes or build volcanoes on your turn, and that causes extra land mass to go other places. So, for example, if you had a level 3 spot with a level 3 volcano, you erupt the volcano, it levels up level 3 to a 4 using one of the volcano point, and then 2 of that flows over to somewhere else. So let's say it flows into the water, it'll form a level 2 piece of land next to it. So that's how the volcanoes work.
Okay. So this is like one of those 2048 games that you can play on your phone where you're combining the numbers tiles.
I didn't
Sounds
even think
exactly like
about
that.
that.
Yeah. The same
Yeah,
mechanic.
kind of a little,
That
except that you're having to do bulk slots of tiles and you can move
yeah.
whole sets of tiles, and there's workers running
And,
around on them because
and it doesn't go
the,
as high either.
and it doesn't go as high. But the workers, you typically want to be moving your tiles around in spots that your workers have access to. So if you make a mountain all the way on the other side of the board from one of your
Uh,
followers, he
you're
can't
only
get to
helping
the
your friend,
mountain.
yeah.
Yeah. So because you're messing with a single board and because you're building up spots that other players can typically do, Or, like, let's say you're building the lowest level of sacred site, you're opening a spot for another player to build a sacred site right on top of yours. So there's so much interaction and sniping that
Hmm.
occurs where someone else does a thing. They're like, okay, I'm making this thing here because I want a mountain because I'm near to it. And then someone else is like, nope, I'm going to move your guy away so that next turn I can walk in there and grab that mountain and you're now way far out of the way. So, haha. Or, someone else goes and builds a mountain for you and you go and do that. Or someone else throws together a 4 and a 4 next to each other and you immediately smoosh those into a mountain and grab that first, or smoosh them out in a different direction what they're doing. There's so much interaction and sniping on the board that it's not that it's frustrating. It's actually kind of
Mm.
delicious doing it. But it is definitely challenging as everyone's
Yeah.
doing a whole bunch of stuff and things are flowing all around this way and that.
It's only frustrating when it's being done to you.
It's not even, I don't personally find that kind of interactions frustrating because they're not directly stabbing me in the back. They're trying to
Right.
do their thing. It just happens to be that their kind of thing is directly getting in the way, but they're still advancing their own thing. It doesn't feel targeted
Yeah.
or mean, so it doesn't bother me. But yeah, it definitely, there's a lot of interaction on the board as everyone is doing a bunch of stuff and interacting.
Hmm. Yep.
That level of interaction is very fun, and I'm now just sort of going through my end game thoughts. Another comment I have about this is, um, because it is such a multi-step process, it really feels like it takes a whole bunch of work to get that snowball flowing. You start the game with, maybe 1-4 on the whole board. You can't take the same smoosh actions twice. So you have to smoosh and then do something else and then smoosh again. And then you have is maybe you have 2 4s next to each other, and then you smush together and they make a mountain. Then your dudes can only walk at the beginning. They walk like one spot every time. So it kind of takes forever to walk there. It takes forever to walk back down the mountain. And just everything takes so long at the beginning of the game. I found that the easiest way to alleviate is just to tell everyone, like, just start by like making sure you're sending your followers to go get you some knowledge points so you can start upgrading things and doing the bigger actions sooner. Because bigger actions just feel more fun, in my opinion. The smaller actions at the start of the game are slow when you're starting. It's not very, it doesn't feel very meaningful. It doesn't feel awesome and cool. When you're doing big actions and doing a ton of stuff, especially later in the game, then you start feeling, powerful, like you're doing cool stuff.
Yep.
It doesn't feel like that at the start.
But I imagine the start also plays faster because you just aren't doing as much.
I actually find the start plays slower because since you're not
Really?
doing as much, everyone sort of hedges and doesn't do very much because they don't
Oh.
feel like they're being successful. So, like, I don't want to do anything because nothing really is advancing any particular agenda or goal.
Okay, that's interesting. I would have thought it played very quickly. Maybe it's just it sounds like it's the sort of thing that may change with more experience. Where like once you've played a lot, you're like, oh, I know what I need to do. I'm going to start heading in that direction already.
That might be. I,
No.
I don't know if that's
Hmm.
necessarily true in either solo or multiplayer, but maybe. It
Okay.
hasn't for me.
Neat. So okay, so most of the game is getting points. There's a couple ways to get points: leveling
There's
up,
really, yeah,
climbing the volcano or the mountain, the pyramid, I guess, climbing the pyramid, and and leveling up gets you points, and just building stuff gets you points too,
yeah.
right?
I
Okay.
think the primary way that you're supposed to get points is by building stuff. If you level up a single track all the way to the top, you get a point every time you take one of those actions, other than the
Mm.
building one. So ideally, you kind of want to like level that up all the way and level up one of your sacred site points all the way, and then alternate between getting all of that particular sacred site and doing whatever action gives you a point every time. I think that's how you're supposed to play. Or at the very least, that's the strategy I've decided is ideal. I have yet to be the best at executing my ideal vision. that that may be my personal discipline issues and me not being great at games, but that's what I think is the right way to play.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So, Julius, tell me about the solo game because I am gonna have to leave soonish.
So, in terms of the solo, it is your standard automata deck. You flip over the
Okay.
board, and there is a set of automa cards.
Not while
The,
you're playing.
what do you mean?
You said you flip over the board, but not in the middle of the game. I
You
don't
flip
imagine.
you flip over the player boards. You flip over player
Oh,
boards.
okay.
And in fact, you have to use an automa for two-player games.
Ah,
Yeah, you use those automa boards to move around on the map and have them do that. So essentially, they're going to have a deck that shows out the different actions they can take, their ideal action, their second option, their third option, and you pick whichever one of those makes the most sense and do that thing. So you are using the automa deck. It's pretty standard for an automa deck. Do the thing, take the actions, move around the board, and then keep interacting until someone ends the game.
okay. Are the Atama boards, are they all exactly the same?
They're not all exactly the same. The different types of
Okay.
automas have character to them about whether or not they're more aggressive, whether
Nice.
they're more buildy, and it lists on the thing which type the different automas are, so you can pick which character, I suppose it is, that you're trying to play of the automas.
Ah, okay. And so there's four. It's a four-player game, so there's four automas in the back, four different automas in the back of each of those. So you could play. Do you play against two or three or
In
one?
solo, you choose two. You can play against three, and then you're setting up for a three-player game. For a two-player game, you are supposed to use one.
Okay. How does the okay? How does the solo game feel? Does it feel like a multiplayer game? Does it feel different? Is it
It
hard or
it,
easy?
it feels like I'm playing with my son. He's not around, so he can't
Gotcha.
hear. It feels like you're playing against a regular player who has interesting versions of strategy.
Yes.
A version of a character who decides I'm gonna do this a bunch and does
And
that a bunch.
try this strategy and see what happens. Got it. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, but otherwise it feels like playing against a regular player. It's not very hard to run the automa deck. Um, so having played a different game that I'm going to review soon, that did not feel very easy to run the automa deck. So this is a stark contrast to that. The automa deck is relatively easy to run. Flip a card, do the action printed, and move on. It's relatively easy to do. Feels relatively identical to the multiplayer game. So I'd say this is a perfectly satisfactory version of running a solo game and running an automa deck in this kind of game.
Nice. Okay. And in playing solo, what is your goal? Is it a high score
Beat the other
against the
player.
automa?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Beat the automa and the other players. They get points just like a regular character does. It is not a cheaty automa. They are not doing
Okay. That was
anything.
my next question.
Yeah, they're not doing anything that another player couldn't necessarily do. They may cheat a little in that they get action. They get points during times that a normal player might not necessarily, but they also don't get points during times that another player might. So that all
Oh,
just evens out at the end.
okay. Okay. So how do you like the solo game?
I think the solo game is perfectly satisfactory. If you're looking to play the game, then I think it's perfectly satisfactory. I have no issues with it.
Okay. And it's a fun game already, so it's just,
Well, my perhaps my final overview of it is that yes, I do think the game is fun. I don't think it's like amazing. It's fun. The tile placement, moving things around is good. The snowballing, just the game feels a little bit slow moving, just because of the amount of time it takes to do stuff. But that's all kind of the charm of the game because other people have to have the ability to interact with it. You wouldn't have a game if you just got left alone. So it has to take time, and you sort of feel your snowball start to go, and you feel more powerful as you get moving. So it feels like it's operating as designed. I'm not blown away by it, but I'm not disappointed by it either.
okay. I don't imagine it's a super deep thinky game either, especially solo. It's because you could make a lot of plans, but you don't know what the automa is going to do, and you're all messing in the same island.
I mean, that's true with other
Yeah.
players too.
Right. Right.
Everyone messes with everyone else. Yes, it is
Yeah.
hard
So
to
it's not
plan too far. You kind of have to come up with like contingency plans.
so not a ton of getting stuck. What is it called? Brain burning sort of game.
Correct. Yeah.
It's not analysis paralysis type of game. Not really.
Yeah. Yeah, mostly it's all about exploding the volcanoes and moving on through things.
Okay, well that sounds fun. Sounds like a blast.
Indeed. But I believe that Albert's Island is sinking and you got to head out.
I do. I really do. All right. Bye, everyone.
Have a good night.
Thank you, Julius.
Thanks for listening. We love feedback, so we love hearing from you. You can reach me at julius@oneplayerpodcast.com or JLBird on BGG, and Albert can be reached at albert@oneplayerpodcast.com or Fractaloon on BGG. Our website is oneplayerpodcast.com with the number 1, and we're also on Twitter at oneplayerpodcast. The intro music is copyright Angus, can be found at jamendo.com. The transition music is copyright by Dan Elduce Pancaldi, whose page is at donpancaldi.com. The One Player Podcast is protected under a Creative Commons share-alike license. Thanks for listening.